Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Weekly Notice with Andy Ngo. Today is the 6th of October, and we are on episode 28. I appreciate the comments that and questions that you leave for me in every episode. I normally get to them towards the end, but on this one, I'm trying to jam in a lot of content, so this week, I'm not going to get to the questions, but the comments I do read. So please send them throughout. Um, I'm going to start off talking about a really bizarre video that's gone viral. Um, and it was recorded out of New York City. And I just got to play it because it's just kind of hard to believe what happened. So, one moment. Okay. So on the 2nd of October, this is at a subway that's traveling through Times Square in New York City. There was a group of Black females, girls or possibly women, I don't know their age, who are wearing neon green outfits, and they're attacking and assaulting others on the train. And the incident was caught partially on video, and the assailants fled the scene. There have been no arrests, as far as I know, by the NYPD, so I'm playing it just in case anybody may be able to provide a tip to the NYPD. So a lot of these videos, I like to bring attention to them. Actually, one, they document crimes that are being committed in American cities, but two, there may be wanted suspects who are still at large. But I think it's important for the public to be aware of the breakdown in order that is happening in some of our big American cities. New York is obviously going to have a lot of videos because it's the biggest city in America by population. But I play a lot of things from Portland, for example, and that's a much smaller city. There's only 600,000 people there. And you see the dysfunction that is repeated, well, day in and day out, involving homelessness, violent crime, or Antifa. If you live in an urban area, I'm curious what's been your experience with, if you have witnessed any violent crimes yourself or have been a victim to one. Okay. Speaking of Portland and dysfunction, I want to bring your attention to this. So earlier this week, a man who works with the Rapid Response BioClean company in Portland, which is it's a private business that is contracted with the city of Portland to do biohazard cleanup. So they collect the needles that are all over the streets of Portland. They are sent in after crews to clear up homeless encampments after the people are moved. So all the rubbish and trash and human waste that is there, they clean. A employee recorded this video showing what the facility processes at any one time, the discarded needles, hypodermic needles in Portland.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to give everybody a little example in Portland, Oregon. How much used rigs we clean up off the streets.
Wow.
Each one of these is probably 100 pounds. Use rigs only. Use rigs. That whole bag. Use rigs. Isn't that incredible? What the fuck? Yeah, you're welcome. God bless you.
Yeah, so you probably think it's weird that he's sticking his bare hands in it. I think that too, but at that point of where he's touching it, it's already been sterilized and the needles are gone and they're just broken down and they're just ready to be discarded now. But I mean, it's incredible, right? To see what are probably what hundreds of thousands of needles, do you think, that are collected off the streets of Portland? Portland, like other cities, San Francisco, Oakland, other cities that are under Democrat leadership, there is a philosophy that those who are engaging in drug abuse are best served by being provided free needles. Um, I talked to a Japanese journalist who I'll get to that later, but I'll play you the interview that I did with her earlier today. Masako Ganaha, excellent independent Japanese journalist. She's been traveling in the US for a few years now, interviewing people and documenting protests and riots, and is bringing it to a Japanese audience um, real footage about what's happening in parts of America. And she let me know that one of the most shocking things that happened to her was in Portland, Oregon, unsurprisingly. She went to a needle exchange. She'd never been to one. She thought the concept was quite bizarre. They don't have something analogous to that in Japan. But she was surprised that the city would be giving out needles that they know are for drug use. She went and they didn't ask. She said they didn't ask a name, didn't ask anything. What they asked was, "How many needles do you need? How many do you want?" Actually, I'll play that interview later on, but that's just a little bit of preview. So I have an update, by the way, on that man who recorded the video that we just watched. So he was with the Rapid Response BioClean, which is a company, by the way, a business that's come under um, violent attack by Antifa. Antifa fault them for, well, cleaning up biohazard waste by homeless people. They said that that is part of sweeping away homeless people, and such action deserves retribution. Well, this man, for making this video, um, he was fired within 24 hours. So that's the update I have. Yeah, I feel for him. And the cost of bravery in illuminating to the public things that are happening that are uncomfortable for the city comes at a cost. So yes, okay. A big incident that happened out of Portland yesterday is one that I've been covering pretty closely. So in Northeast Portland, there is a cafe called the Bizen Coffee House, and it's run by a Native American woman named Loretta Guzman. She's a longtime Portlander. Her father had a business in Portland as well for many years, so she's well known within the community. And her cafe is one of the small businesses that, well, she agreed to host an event called Coffee with a Cop. And as you can probably imagine, in Portland, that went down really badly. among Antifa and the far left. So these aren't necessarily people who are her patrons or her friends or anything. They're just people who want to bully people into submission. So what happened is after the Bisson Coffee House announced the event, which was supposed to take place on the 5th of October, Wednesday, the 5th of October, um, a chance for people to have a cup of coffee and talk to a Portland police officer, ask questions, maybe clear misconceptions, or maybe even voice their frustrations with whatever grievances they have. I think it's a great program. We hear complaints by BLM a lot and the far left that they don't know who's policing them, that they feel like this is an occupying force. I think that's a farce, first of all, but even if, let's say, that's really your grievance, we'll get to know the officers who make up the department in your city. But this was seen as unforgivable, and so the business was swarmed with really vicious, nasty comments on social media. Go figure, that happens a lot when the left target somebody. But then what happened in the early hours of the 5th of October is, well, I'll just show you. So the business was completely smashed up by 6 masked assailants. They were using hammers and metal pipes to smash up the place. And then they sprayed this white staining liquid all over um, to basically destroy the insides. And this is a Native American woman who proudly displays indigenous art inside, and that was damaged by this attack. This is a video from the Bisson Coffee House's Instagram of the damage from the inside, and I'll also show you pictures from the outside. See the smashed windows? That paint or white liquid, whatever it is, everywhere on the inside. So Antifa targeting a woman, a person of color, an indigenous woman. Well, that's what they do. You know, I'm speaking from experience as a gay person of color who's been viciously assaulted by them multiple times, as have many other people. They are entirely, they're liars when they say that they are defenders of Black, indigenous people of color. They are quite often the perpetrators of violence against us. And the response online to this attack that's meant to intimidate the business, by the way, in the community, is Antifa have been celebrating it and saying, this is what you get. This is what you get for daring to host a pro-cop event. I'm going to play the video, surveillance video, which I just published on my social media, so you can see how it happened. Here we go. Watch how quickly it takes place. 6 black masked figures in black bloc. There you go, smashing it up. Bam, bam, watch. You see the glass shatter. And then you see one of them comes in and starts spraying all this white stuff everywhere on the inside. Smash. And they go. You see how quickly that was? Seconds, really. Portland police made no arrests. They did show up immediately. These are some of the pictures that the Portland police released. So you can see the damage on the inside on all the broken glass. Here's a Portland police officer trying to sweep up the broken glass on the ground. The mayor issued, I'm going to show you some of the mayor's comments before I show you Antifa's comments. He issued some of his strongest statements that I've seen actually for what is suspected to be a far left attack in Portland. Normally in the past, he's been more generically condemning of violence and often not in very strong terms. But look what he said here. So he wrote, last night, Bison Coffee House, a local BIPOC woman-owned small business, was attacked and vandalized by a group of masked criminals. They shattered windows and covered the interior of the shop with white paint. This destruction happened on the eve of Bison Coffee House hosting an event to bring the community and police together. Portland police was able to immediately respond, began investigating, and assist the owner with cleaning up her shop in the aftermath of these hate-filled acts. Upon arrest, I will advocate for the prosecution to the fullest extent of the law, including potential federal hate crimes. Well, nobody's been arrested so far, and Antifa were furious at what Ted Wheeler said. A lot of people on the right were upset, saying, "Where were you when other businesses were targeted, other homes were targeted?" Well, to that I say, um, I I mean, he's making an improvement. So, at this point, we had in Portland now 5 years of Ted Wheeler. So, um, you know, just take the crumbs when you get them, I guess. You know, people did vote for him there, and he was seen as the best choice. So look at it in context there. Um, so this is I tracked many of the Antifa responses, as you can see here, and I also linked to it, but they've all locked down their accounts, so they deleted the tweets. So this is from an Antifa account in Portland. Lots of really violent, extreme stuff on the account, by the way. Fred the Friendly. Really looks like Bison Coffee House in Coley. Coley's the neighborhood. Got its S word smashed up in relation to a coffee with the cop they had scheduled for today. And then they have it has this picture that's kind of a shoulder shrug. Too bad, right? And this is the account's pinned tweet, by the way. If you go on it, I think the account's locked. The account is locked down now, but it said, "Violence is not only a proportionate response, but is actually also good. Actually, you come for queer folks, expect violence. You come for anyone's bodily autonomy, effing violence. You come for trans kids, I'm going to make you hurt." This is another Antifa account that I've tracked a lot, Redwood_PDX. And this is responding to Ted Wheeler. Federal hate crimes. If it's a hate crime to attack Trump loving bootlickers, then I guess because the coffee shop wasn't vandalized for any reason other than that, quit your job. So Antifa, as you can imagine, have been celebrating it by saying, "See, look at this. Seeing the coffee with the cop place get S word on," and then these hearts. The far left and Antifa accounts in Portland are justifying the attack by saying that in addition to them agreeing to host this coffee with the copy event, they had also made the sin of allegedly following Donald Trump on its Instagram account. I wasn't able to independently confirm that, but that was used as a justification. Here's another Antifa account. It's like people don't like the police or something. So what their responses demonstrate is that well, one deserves to have their livelihood destroyed. This is a small family business. If they do something merely as small as following Donald Trump on an Instagram account, this is how totalitarian they are. So, look at them and listen to them when they speak and do actions, because they'll tell you a lot. This Antifa account. Windows are not people and can't be attacked. PBB, who would have been at the coffee with the copy event, attacked people 6,000 times that they self-reported. So this is trying to justify it. This is the account who's also locked down. location they put Antifa headquarters, which would be Portland. um, some accounts actually were not quite happy that a indigenous owned business was targeted, but they said that white businesses should have been targeted first or simultaneously. This is from one account who's also locked down or deleted the tweet. This account wrote, just so I'm clear, a coffee shop had a whole meet and cop thing, but was also involved in getting water to Warm Springs and as indigenous owned. So the idea was to go straight to window smashing. Do I have any of that wrong? If not, maybe stick to Starbucks windows for a while. Do what you want, but I just keep thinking about all the white NIMBY owned Portland Business Association companies that haven't been smashed up. Sure, people will bash the Starbucks, but how about all the heavy hitters that you could have went after instead of this place? I mean, over and over, I'm showing you all how the far left used Twitter to incite violence and to organize violence, actually. Has the Arlington Club had their windows smashed? Chamber of Commerce? Any of the real seats of economic power? No. Why the F is that? Another person wrote, for real though, how many white-owned coffee shops have had coffee with the copy events in the past few months and y'all didn't go break their windows overnight? I just went to patch and amazing all these events. So there, that's their view. Is that even if they didn't agree with targeting this particular business, what they think is that others should have been targeted. I spoke, by the way, with the Loretta Guzman, the owner of the Bisson coffee shop. By the way, there's a GoFundMe, and if you search for it on GoFundMe, it's for the titles Vandalism. Loretta Guzman is the organizer. They've already raised 20,000 so far, I think, and people have left really great messages. By the way, if you read here, and some have donated a lot. Please give if you can. I think it's people who are victims of the far left should not suffer silently, and most of the time they do, unfortunately, because the mainstream left is sympathetic to the actions of the far left. But this was a small business owner who was doing a good thing for her community by volunteering to host this event, and for that she was made to suffer severely. I did speak with her, and I just want to read a couple of quotes. So I reached out as a journalist to let her know I've been reporting on this. And at one point, I asked Loretta Guzman if she had anything to say to those who did this. And well, first, what surprised me is that throughout my interview with her, she was working in the same cafe, cleaning things up, preparing food. As after this happened early on Wednesday morning, the community, she said, came together, and everyone, they grabbed random towels to start wiping up all that white liquid. They helped sweep, and the goal was to get the business up and running so that the coffee with the copy event could happen that day, and indeed it did. That type of spirit I don't often see in Portland. I think the city of Portland has been really, really demoralized because of the public safety issues and the riots there. But she pushed on. So she was walking throughout this interview, and I asked her, what do you have to say to those who did this? And she said she didn't have anything to say, that she's going to keep on doing what she does. And I asked her if she was afraid, and she said no. And this is a quote from her. Scared of what? I've already had cancer. I've been through a lot in my life. My dad didn't raise us to be fearful. I find these quotes actually really empowering. It's somebody who's been literally hours before, victimized in such a violating way, right? This community that she's been a part of, that a mob could just show up and disappear and do all this destruction. And her responses, I'm not afraid. You won't intimidate me. That is not something you see in Portland. I will tell you, most of the people there are cowards, which is why the riots were able to happen as long as they did. Nobody wanted to be the nail that stuck out. This woman is fearless. Okay. All right. So I spoke with a incredible Japanese journalist named Masako Ganaha. Here, I'm going to pull up her Twitter. So she has, you see here, over 250,000 followers. Most of her stuff, her writings is in Japanese, but if you go to her website, ganahamasako.com, you can see her YouTube, links to her YouTube channel, or you can just search for her name in the YouTube. Please do, because go to the video report link at the top. You will see her interviews are in English because she's traveling primarily in the United States and also Western Europe, documenting the far left and the militant far left, among other things. And she presents it for a Japanese audience who otherwise wouldn't be made aware of this. You know, Japanese corporate media, when they do report on political unrest in America, they take the corporate line, which is what you would expect from, you know, something like an NBC or a CNN as well. But there aren't very many Japanese journalists who are going on the ground in the US. One, it's expensive. It's hard to do. You know, if there's a language barrier, that makes it even more difficult. And then there are cultural, political things. You know, I couldn't just plot myself into Japan, let's say, after all the stuff with the assassination of the former conservative prime minister Shinzo Abe. You know, I could have taken a flight there, but I wouldn't know, you know, how to navigate the space. You know, I could show up to certain things, but I don't understand the dynamics between the left and the right in Japan and how that interacts with their history and also their traditions. You know, so the fact that an outsider can do it in the U.S. or in Western Europe so well as Masako has done, it's excellent, and she's fearless. I guess that's kind of the theme of what I admire in people, right? Is to be fearless, because there are so many powerful individuals, organizations, forces out there that make us feel afraid in the goal for us to self-censor. You know, they don't have to throw us in jail. They don't have to physically harm us or anything, but they can apply so much social pressure that we censor ourselves. So I had the privilege of speaking with her just not too long ago, actually, and so I'm gonna play that interview here. It's exclusive premiere. I mean, I've admired your work for a couple years now, and I thought I wanted to introduce you to my live stream audience and just my audience in general. So,
my name is Masako Ganaha. I'm from Okinawa, Japan, and I am an independent journalist.
So I first heard of you when you were in Portland and other parts of America in 2020 when there was lots of riots. And what I admired about you is that you went out on your own and you were willing to interview people that corporate media maybe wouldn't take an interest in. And you were able to grasp, I saw, a very kind of a good understanding of the dynamics of the actors that were involved in the riots. What made you, one, head into these places that were experiencing a lot of unrest, like Portland, for example?
Why I went there? Because I was curious what was happening.
Just a curiosity?
Yes, and actually I was learning a lot by going many places, because many Japanese people don't know what's really happening in America. So I just went there and then I just turned on camera and then let's see what I'm going to find out.
How did Japanese media cover George Floyd and the riots in America?
Oh, okay, so basically most of corporate media in Japan, they are in favor of those leaders. So they say, oh, it's just a racism issue. And it's much like your CNN in America.
Is it really that bad?
It's very bad, yes.
Wow, so I had a misunderstanding then. I thought that Japanese corporate media would perhaps be a little bit better, but clearly not.
No.
You went to many different cities in America. What, for you, was anything shocking? Did it shatter your perception of American culture or cohesion or society? What was the most shocking thing you saw?
So many shocking things.
Okay, name the top three.
Okay, the number one shocking was when I visited California, Skid Row. I was driving with other journalists, and then because I am a good driver, I was driving, and then we just started to wandering around, and the other person was shooting camera. And then the lady outside, she's one of the homeless, I think, she saw us filming. So she was saying, they are taking photo of us. We could hear it, the voice. And then like, Masako, hit the axle, you know? And then we were just keep going. That was the most shocking thing.
The homelessness encampments.
Yes. We were not
and
trying.
The aggression of the people there.
I just wanted to see what's really happening because it's shocking for me to see so many homeless tents like this, and many people are like acting very weird or drinking or like seem to be under drug. I saw a person doing like frauds like this, and I learned that this is type of one of the famous drug that will make you specifically frauds like this. Mm-hmm. So that was the shocking thing.
Do you think that type of, in Japan, is that type of behavior tolerated in the public?
We don't see this.
You don't see, but would it be tolerated if it were to happen?
No, I don't think so. I was shocked to see that local police let this happen. And the other number two shocking thing was that when I went to Oregon, I heard that needle exchange. So, okay, and the person who told me about this happening said the church is distributing this. So I was like, church? So I went to a church, and then actually there was a van that was not provided but operated by local officials. So it was not the church itself, but the place was church parking spot was the place. And then I decided to walk to the van, and then I said, I want needle. Like I heard I can get needle here. And then the person didn't ask my ID or my name, nothing. But the next question that I got was, how many do you need? I was shocked once again. And I said, 5, because I did not know how many to get. And then the person inside was, I think she was kind of like, got suspicious of me maybe. And she was half laughing, I think, and then gave me a box. It was like 100 needle. That was the minimum size of the
100 was the minimum.
Yes.
Wow, I think, yeah, so I can see why that would be shocking. Unfortunately, when you describe this, a lot of Americans have been desensitized. As you probably have learned in your time in America, there's a belief that is mainstream in liberal areas and among liberal people that the compassionate thing to do with people who are homeless or suffer from severe mental illness or drug abuse is to let them do it and let them live where they want. And so in places like in California, in places like Portland and Seattle, the local officials restrict the police ability to clear out the encampments. And so the encampments grow, or if they're moved, they just relocate and they come back.
And with the needle exchanges, the belief behind that is, well, if they're going to use drugs by injection anyways, let's give them clean needles to do it. And in my state of where I'm from, Oregon, in 2020, as part of a number of left-wing related political reforms in the law, the legislature passed a law that decriminalize the possession of hard drugs. By hard drugs, I'm talking about cocaine, heroin, meth. All you get now is a citation, a small fine, $100, and if you don't pay it, nothing happens anyways. And in Portland, or in Oregon, we've seen a spike since then of overdose deaths. And you know, sometimes I find myself desensitized too, in a way that, you know, I'm an American citizen, so then I see things as an American, but then I can also, my parents come from Vietnam and I have family there, and so then when I explain things in American urban areas to my family in Vietnam, they almost don't believe me that, wait, in America you would allow people to use drugs on your streets? And I said, yes, they do. And they actually encourage it in a number of ways, through the law or through these so-called drug programs. What are some other shocking things you saw?
What are some of the shocking things? I don't know. I think what I'm saying is politically way incorrect, but I don't know the difference. I'm gonna say it anyway. So the things that made me surprised is everything is under the name of welfare, and I think it's not welfare. It's just harming. And the one thing I was shocked was I was driving, and on the street I saw a toilet, like a portable toilet. It's okay for everybody to use it. I can understand. But what written on the toilet was, it's more than just a toilet. It's something like it's a right or something like that. I was shocked. You know, this, I think the idea of everybody is equal and everybody has to live better life has become to just ideology. Like, why don't you just put toilet and let everybody use it? Why do you have to put the sign on it? So that was the shocking thing for me. Yes.
Yes, there's in Western culture, there's a belief that that certain things are just rights, kind of rights out of nowhere. Right to housing, right to money, if you are living in poverty, right to, you know, we can go on and on and on. And with that, there's no expectation of self-responsibility. And I mean, that's kind of part of the driving philosophy behind these things that you observe that have led to so much dysfunction in many urban areas. What do you think are, through your independent reporting, what are some other things that you have helped illuminate to your Japanese audiences? Like, did your audience, were they really surprised by anything that you said or showed?
I think yes, and the reports that I did from Portland particularly caught attention by Japanese people, because Portland is known for many Japanese as beautiful. Portland. We say Portland. Our sound is very difficult. It's a very famous place to visit.
That's right.
So when people saw my live stream, they were truly shocked. That's the most thing that I was. The comment I got was something like this. So at the same time, people realized that how much media has not shown us the reality. Yes, by showing this, they understand. Oh, we don't know this much. Yeah.
I think there's. Okay, let me know if this is completely wrong. I have this perception that the Japanese society, Japan, is not at risk of the political instability that you see in America because, one, you have a homogenous society where the overwhelming majority are ethnic Japanese with the same cultural and religious background. Two, there's a certain element of conformism to the culture, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is that a correct perception? It's like
Yes, I think it's correct, but at the same time, it's under attack too.
Who's under attack by?
For example, we have strong value in family,
Yes.
but there is this. I think it's propaganda to destroy our traditional value. For example, family is not just father, mother, children, but it's like we can create the form of family. That kind of things. I do not say that, like I don't like LGBTQ. Like I don't say I don't like them, but it's okay. But it should not be ideology, And so.
Did you always recognize that it has become an ideology? Did you know that before you came to America?
I did not know. I was shocked to know that America has turned like this. And yes, and many Japanese people like things come from outside, especially American culture. So we love America. And so still now, media is trying to use our tendency to introduce radical ideology too. Yes, that's what happened.
In your media?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Have they had much success though, or is the pushback from that strong?
Pushback is not so strong because many Japanese people are still sleeping. That's why I'm trying to wake people up. And we have a BLM movement, and we have Antifa people.
And you have a communist party.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought they were very active in a lot of the protests over the years against the late former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about some of these Antifa and BLM protests that have happened in Japan. I looked into it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Was that seen as out of character for Japanese culture and politics, or is that normal?
This is new to us, particularly BLM, and I don't so much. I have not witnessed Antifa movement, but if I type in Antifa, I can see the photos, actual protest place.
Yeah.
BLM. Actually, I'm from Okinawa, and I saw on Twitter there are so
and
many.
that's an island off the southern coast of Japan.
Yes.
Right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think it. Sorry. Continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. In Okinawa, there is BLM signs, and there is a particular town that I saw. They have handouts, like they have pamphlets and T-shirts, and people who are organizing this movement. But it has not picked up so much. So they are, I think, trying to push this, but it has not been successful yet.
And what's the most dangerous situation do you think you've been in your years of time spending abroad now, covering protests, unrest, riots?
Most dangerous.
Yeah, what's the
moment?
most dangerous for you personally, where you felt you were actually quite concerned for your safety? If there was a moment.
Not as much as you experienced, but at one night, I think I was in Oregon and
Portland.
Yes. And then I was driving. It was like around midnight, and near the courthouse. And then I saw some people, like crowd, looked like Antifa crowd. So I not by myself, but I was with other people too. We drove and take a look, and then like, okay, let's just park here and see what's gonna happen. So we parked near their crowd, and then I was in the car, and we turned off everything. and then we saw, it was like really close distance, maybe 4 meters away, there was one person armed with a gun. And then, oh, if he noticed me, is he gonna shoot me? That was the intense moment that I experienced. And then I did a live stream from the car. And like I said, I'm in a car and I see Antifa people and one has a gun in his hand. And let's see what's gonna happen. Like, this is a real live stream. That's what I did.
So you witnessed, the armed far left in America, which is a more newer phenomenon. And in many of those situations, they have killed people. They've been killed themselves as well. What do you think Japan is most vulnerable at from these outside ideologies? What do you think, if there's one thing that could potentially become mainstream in Japan, what is it? Is it the LGBTQ ideology?
I think it comes down to our core value in family. Because one thing I noticed by listening to you too is that we are human, right? So whatever we do, it has to be something individually within us that can be like destroyed, and then next something bad would happen. So what I'm trying to say is that this is one thing I learned from a war correspondent, Michael Young, that I have interviewed him before. He said, like, many people ask for the spark, but what we have to focus on is the atmosphere or condition. So if the condition is set right, then the spark can be anything. For example, fire. If it's dried and then forest and no rain, then spark can be anything. Maybe arsonist can put on fire, or it can be accident by somebody put cigarette. Anything can be cause a big fire, but if the condition is set, then huge things, problem can happen. So for us in Japan, the condition can be attack on family, because for me, for example, personally, if I were forced to do something bad, then I would first think, oh, what my father would think, what my mother would think. So the family is the stop bar for me to make mistake. Of course, I am a human, so I'm learning a lot, but always I think of family. And I think that's happened to many Japanese people too. So if you don't have a strong tie among your family, then you can do anything. Or you would want to find a stronger tie outside, because you cannot live with by yourself. We are human, so we need to live in a group. So one thing I found in common for the people who do extreme activism in America and the activists in Japan, we have those people too. The common thing is that they don't have strong family value, I think. What happens if you do something against police? Then the family will try to stop you. What are you doing? You know, like, you're a valuable person in my family. Don't do this, like, don't hurt yourself. But if you don't have this, then nobody would stop you. So that's the condition, I think. And if Japanese people lose core value in family, then we can be susceptible to anything. Yes.
That is such a good observation, important observation, and I'm really glad you pointed that out. You and I just did our own interview. We do talk about this subject, but yes, there is this certain, over and over, what I've seen from the Antifa that I've covered is they are cut off from their families by their own choice, and they may have been brought up in actually unfortunate situations where they didn't have good relationships with their parents. Even though most of your audience is Japanese, your interviews I think almost all of them are conducted in English, right?
Yes.
Yes. So how can people watch your content?
Yes, I have my own YouTube channel under the name Masako Ganaha, and I'm going to do interviews in English. And for Japanese people, I will put Japanese subtitle, or if I do live, then I will have the English answer, and then right after I translate it in Japanese, so both can listen.
Well, I've been a fan of yours, and I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing. I think you are really, I can't think of anybody else, and it's, you're doing it at a great cost and time to shed a light, and Japan's really lucky to have you, and I hope that others take inspiration from your work to become better informed about these certain political trends that are happening in the US and in Western Europe, dangerous trends, what I would argue. Thank you.
I really thank you and your audience for supporting Andy. That's why I got to learn what you do. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And that was Masako Ganaha. Please follow her on Twitter and subscribe to her YouTube channel. She does great work, and most of it is in English, by the way. Going back to American crime stories, I want to bring your attention to an arrest that has happened on a case that has really disturbed and made the Indian American community in the Bay Area of California very fearful for a number of weeks now. So there's been a string of attacks of at least 14 Indian Hindu women who have been brutally beaten and attacked and robbed of their various jewelry. They've had some of their bones and limbs broken in the course of the attacks, and a suspect has finally been apprehended and charged. So this is in East Palo Alto, California. It's not too far from San Francisco, San Jose area. So this is Lethan Johnson. So he's been charged with more than a dozen violent hate crimes over attacks on 14 Indian women in the Bay Area. Okay, and I am going to play you an interview that I did with GB News this week. I do talk about this case from Northern California. I was interviewed by Lawrence Fox, he's the actor that played Hunter Biden in the new Hunter Biden biopic that was published by Breitbart. So watch that if you haven't seen it yet. We talked about Meghan Markle, and because Meghan Markle has a new podcast out where she talks about Asian American issues, and you can probably guess the angle that she took. So I'm going to play the interview for you.
Meghan Markle has stated recently in an interview that was listened to by 9 people that she feels that movies like Austin Powers and Kill Bill present caricatures of women of Asian descent as over-sexualized or aggressive. She added that the toxic stereotyping of women in Asian descent doesn't just end once the credits roll. Does Meghan Markle have a point? Or is this just a woke Z-list actress making a mountain out of a molehill to sell another book or make another Netflix program? To discuss this, I am joined in the studio by award-winning journalist Andy No. Thank you, Andy, so much for joining us.
Of course, thanks for having me here.
Okay, talk me through this one.
So the title of the episode is The Demystification of the Dragon Lady, which sounds very philosophical and intellectual, but if you listen to just a few minutes of it, the issue that Meghan raises in so-called stereotypes in Hollywood of East Asian or Oriental women, and she brings up Austin Powers. The third film in the series that came out in 2002 had a running gag from previous films, actually, where the names of of two women in this particular case sounds like something very sexual, and the two women here happen to be Japanese girls. The point, I think, of that scene is that it's mocking the caricature. And now, 20 years later, Megan thinks that she's being philosophical by raising, well, these are caricatures and it's offensive. Well, that was actually the point. And, for her, she brought on the guest of Margaret Cho to discuss the alleged hypersexualization of East Asian Oriental women. And Margaret Cho is a Korean American comedian who, for decades, the backbone of her public persona and her comedy is the fact that she's extremely hypersexualized and that she makes jokes about tropes about East Asian people and her Korean family. So the whole thing is typically what you expect, a lot of contradictions and I guess irony that Megan doesn't appear to see in front of her.
She's never one to avoid jumping on a bandwagon, Megan, is she? So do you think we're witnessing in America, which is never reported by CNN or any of the MSNBC or anything like that, systemic racial attacks on Asian people, East Asian people? Do you think Megan is just jumping on the bandwagon of going, now I've got to try and get my Asian brothers and sisters on board? Or is she genuinely concerned?
She is jumping a bandwagon, obviously. She brought up, actually, crimes against Asian Americans at one point, but I think completely misinformed the audience. So she brought up the case of the shootings of the Asian sex bars in Atlanta in March of last year. Now, that mass shooting in which there were 8 people who were murdered, 6 of whom were of East Asian Oriental background, the media ran the narrative that this was an extension of anti-Asian bigotry, discrimination from COVID, from Trump's rhetoric, and it started the campaign #StopAsianHate. Well, very quickly it emerged that there was no evidence that the suspect, now convicted gunman, had actually targeted these spas because of racial animus. In fact, based on what he said and all the evidence that's been known, is that he had a sex addiction and viewed these massage parlors that also is accused of having performing illegal sex services. That's why he targeted them. And in one of the 2 counties where the prosecutors have successfully brought convictions against him, the district attorney there in Cherokee County, Georgia, did say that there was no evidence of racial animus. But even with all this known, Megan brought this up, somehow squeezing it into this podcast discussion about anti-Asian hate or discrimination, and it doesn't fit. And what's unfortunate is that one of the other guests on the show is Lisa Ling, is a very successful Asian American journalist, and there was no pushback by this journalist on misinformation. And it's also been reported that Megan's hired a fact checker for her podcast series, and I would just say apparently that person's not correct.
But there is, in America, there is quite a rising tide. If you look at the statistics of demographic versus demographic of the attacks on Asian people, do you think that some of this is her way of deflecting away from something that is statistically extremely relevant, as into which demographic is attacking the Asian community?
Yeah, so I can appreciate that this is a British audience who's watching, but actually even Americans aren't really aware of this because of the shying away in the mainstream media reporting actually on demographics behind many of the perpetrators of violent attacks on East Asians in American cities. It is over and over, and we're seeing this reflected in the data as well, that we're not seeing white supremacists carrying out these attacks. In fact, the perpetrators are disproportionately Black American, and that may be very uncomfortable for people to accept, but it is a reality, and we are doing a very big disservice to the victims of these assaults, robberies, beatings, etc., by not sharing their stories in the news because of the fact of this fear that it may enforce racial stereotypes. We just had out of Northern California a man, a black male suspect, who's been charged over allegedly beating and robbing 14 Indian Hindu women in Northern California, robbing them of their jewelry. I think if the suspect had been white, this would be one of the biggest stories in America, given the string of attacks. But most Americans are probably not aware that it happened once, much less 14 times.
They need to unplug from the propaganda machine and get with the stats. Andy No, thank you so much for joining me. That was Andy No there.
Well, thank you everyone for joining me on Weekly Notice this week. I hope you enjoyed the interview that I did with Masako Ganaha and the interview that I just played from GB News, interviewed by Lawrence Fox. I'm going to talk about how you can support my work, please. This is very important. So on my Linktree, which is linktree/AndyNGO, there are all the links for where you can support me. And I have a Locals, a Patreon, as well as Subscribestar. And if you go on my website, andy-ngo.com, you'll see the same links. I also have a PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, and even a Bitcoin account. Your support is how I'm able to continue to do this type of work. For those who have pledged support in recent weeks, thank you so much. This is my Locals, ngo.locals.com. I also have the Patreon here, patreon.com/AndyNGO. And so please check out those places if you can, and join me. There are options where you can join without making a payment. It's hard economic times for a lot of people right now. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I will see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time for Weekly Notice. Goodbye.